What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Coach Joe Strong, here with my business partner, Dan Goodman, and we are about to bring you another awesome episode of the Business of Strength podcast, where you can hear the interviews, tips, and tools to grow your gym business and turn yourself into an entrepreneurial powerhouse. Don't forget that our next live event is Weight Room Wealth. That's going to be May 9th and 10th right here in New York. You can come join us for 2 full days of awesome learning. We're going to be breaking down the marketing and money moves you need to scale and grow your gym business. You're going to walk away with some awesome blueprints and tools to use in your business, networking with other high performing, awesome gym owners, and get some really awesome education for a few $100. It'll be the best investment in your business this year. You can go to businessofstrength.com, check out our live events page, sign up for that. That's going to be an awesome event. Dan, what's going on, my man? We got a Q&A talk today. We procured a whole bunch of questions. Dan had sent out some emails and social posts, getting some questions from our fans and followers. So you asked, we're going to answer, and we're going to do our best to answer a bunch of questions. We got some great questions today. So let's get it started. We got a lot of questions to get to, and hopefully we give everybody that's listening some clarity on some of the big issues that you might be having with your brick and mortar gym businesses.
Yeah, 100%. So, sometimes obviously we're an email marketing based company. And, look, we send out emails every single week. And sometimes you send out and you're like, is anybody reading this? And obviously we look at the data, we see the analytics, but sometimes there's no responses. But this past week when we did a Q&A, maybe it's because we haven't done one of these in a while, Joe, but we got flooded with responses, which means people are reading. So thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
So we got some great questions, and we'll get right to it. A lot of the questions are, obviously pertinent to marketing, finance, team leadership, and that is really why I made sure to do this one with Joe. I mean, obviously at this point in our company, we have certain specialties in our own business, and two brains answering questions that you have is better than one. So we're going to take it away. The format that we'll do this here, I'll read out the question. Joe, you'll take half of them, and then I'll take half. And obviously we can share as we go.
Sure.
And add the tidbits where we see fit. So the first question I have is from Jeff. Jeff is actually opening. I talked to Jeff last week. And he sent the question in. He is living in sunny San Diego, and he is opening a gym called Revival. And he asked, what marketing tips do you have for opening a brand new gym?
All right. So 3 hours from now, when we finish this, obviously that's a very open-ended question. So I'll give you a couple quick hitters, Jeff. And I think obviously the first thing I always go back to is just understanding your who and your what and your why, right? And what I mean by that is know exactly who you're trying to sell your product to, what problems that product solves for that client, and why they need it, right? You have to refine that and rework that quite a bit to make sure that before you open up this brand new gym, that you actually have a product that people want and need, and that solves a problem that's not currently being solved by another business across the street or something, or at least in a little bit of a different way, right? Like, if it's a personal training gym, obviously there's a lot of personal training gyms, but what's your unique take and spin on how your personal training, your methodology, your service offerings solve the problem of the clients that you're trying to get? I think that's mission critical important. I think too many gym owners just say, I'm gonna do training, I'm gonna do athletes. We're really digging into that, that client avatar. Second thing, and this has worked really well for us, is just, focus on the community side. As a brick and mortar gym, even in a big city like San Diego, in that local demographic around you, let's call it, your half a mile demographic in San Diego, which is probably a lot of space. That might even be too big for that type of city. Make sure you have introduced yourself and you get to know other prominent business owners and businesses in the area. There are key players right around you, and sometimes those key players really can unlock for lack of a better term, a proverbial golden door, right? That they could have lots and lots of connections to clients and businesses and people that you might also be able to serve. So we do a lot on the community side, and we're always trying. One of our main goals as a company when we open up our gyms is to really be a beacon in the community, to do some positive stuff, whether it's community work, charity work, donating to the fire departments, police departments, and things like that. The more you can get yourself out there in the community, the better for sure. And then last but not least, have a real marketing budget. I had a call yesterday with a gym, nice guy, really nice guy, opening up a brand new gym, really excited about it, was telling me everything about it, like all the mechanisms, all the equipment. And he's going on and on and on about, this brand's leg press, this brand's pendulum press, this thing's this. And I said, well, what type of gym? What's the service you're doing? He's like, well, he's like, well, it's a personal training gym. And I'm thinking, like, why do you need all that stuff then? And I said, well, how much money do you have earmarked for your marketing budget? He's like, well, nothing. He's like, it's word of mouth. I was like, "Er." And I said, so, you need a real marketing budget. And again, I can't give you specific numbers, but as a generalization here, our launch budget for our last gym was close to 30 grand, right? And that's a small suburban gym with not a tremendous amount of local competition around it at the time, right? Where like if you're opening up in San Diego, a big city, that number might need to be even more than that. And that starts to become a real number. So you might have to, in a sense, tier ordering equipment or hiring, or really be careful with what you do to make sure you hit the marketing budget, because nothing would be worse than overspending on equipment, having this beautiful gym, underspending on marketing. And then on day one, you open the doors and it's crickets, right? And you got 10, 15 new members. Way better to have less equipment and less mechanisms inside the gym and have a packed house, because once you have a packed house, you just go buy that shit, right? So you open a door like we did, obviously we opened the doors in Oradell with 90 clients. Big sigh of relief. It's like, okay, when Anthony came to us and said, hey guys, like I think we need a couple other pieces of cardio equipment. I'd like to get these bars. I'd like to get some new, like some new toys. It's like, yeah, no problem. Great. Because we already had the membership roll and we knew we weren't hemorrhaging money from day one. So those would be my like quick hitter big tips for marketing a new gym.
Yeah, those are all great, Joe. The big thing, especially being in San Diego, one thing to plus that is you're in literally the nicest weather market in
Hmm.
North America. So what can
Yeah.
you leverage in the parks, street fairs? Is
Yes.
there
Great plan.
pop-up workouts? Like you you're never too big or small to be making those inroads in your town. Like can you go do a guest appearance at like another fitness center that
Yeah.
maybe a yoga place or whatever it might be, but how can you joint venture with other local businesses to show them the things that you offer and that you can offer the community, even if it's for free, with the exchange being the contact information. The contact information it's so critical to start building a list that you own before opening. If we open the doors, I mean, Joe, to your point on our marketing budget, we also open the doors in Oradell with not a couple dozen people on an email list. We open the doors there with thousands of people on an email list.
Yes.
So that is hugely important.
Yeah, I mean, and I hate, I know we want to move to other questions, but marketing is such a big part of the opening a gym. It's so mission critical, and we made our mistake, man. We did. I mean, we did it. We had a very little budget and didn't market as well as we needed to in Ridgewood. We solved that problem for gym number two, and we crushed it on the opening, and and we're doing really well there. On the pop up side of things, our friends Emily and Peter Vodden over at Farrow's, right, which is up and over the mountain from our friend here in San Diego. They've done fantastic doing pop ups at a variety of pool clubs and hotels. So maybe there's something there in San Diego for you, Jeff, where you could partner up with a hotel, run a really awesome like boot camp or fitness style workout out on their pool deck. And it's just all it is awareness, right? Getting people to showcase you, your brand, your training, and just get some great social media. One of the things that we did, obviously, with the launch of the facilities, we brought some team members and some A+ clients down there and had like a photo shoot day. The sooner you could get some social proof, the sooner you could get some great videos and pictures of people training with you and in the space, the better for for your advertising and stuff like that.
Oh, awesome. So the next question, we had a bunch, like almost 4 or 5 people write in that their biggest question surrounding their gym was finance. And a lot of it was pertaining to how to separate income into different areas, how much to spend on marketing, how much to spend on growth versus savings for future business expansion. And I'll take this one. You could add your spin on it,
Sure.
Joe. It is the first things first. And I'll never forget when we first started working with Mike Waldron. He gave us like a backhanded compliment where he was like, "Hey, you guys got the plane in the air. You're flying across the country, and you did the hardest part. Like, you know how to train people. You clearly know how to sell people, but you're spending it as fast as you're making it. And there's going to be no smooth landing this plane if you don't figure it out." And us figuring it out was really just starting to abide by a budget and then reviewing that budget. It's the same as a training plan. It's like, okay, cool. Like, you could be training all the time, but if you don't have checks and balances with your training to understand if you're making progress or not, then like, what are you doing here? You're just spinning your wheels. And I know there's plenty of meatheads on the call that understand that analogy, but really the big thing in terms of budget, and we talk about this a lot, and I'm going to be hammering this at Weight Room Wealth, is, there's variations of a budget, but I'm just, a back of a napkin budget for the people listening to this. Let's just say you're trying to back into a 30% profit margin. So for every $100,000 that you make, you're getting to keep 30 grand. Now, what you do with that 30 grand, you pay yourself, depending on needs, whatever it is. Obviously, you want to safe harbor cash in a business, and profitability in a business allows you to grow and do other things in a business. So, 30% profit margin. If you are going to hire a team, we look at roughly a 35% salary cap or payroll that includes taxes and fees through your payroll processor. A 10% variable expense, which is things that, expenses that you can control. This could be something like a cleaning company. This could be something like the CRM that you use. This could be your email service provider where there could be some variation in expense. You should be, and Joe, you touched upon it a little bit before, but all businesses, new, old, whatever, should be spending at least 5% of their top line revenue on marketing. Minimum, right? You market with time or money, and ideally both. But for every 100 grand you're making, you need to be thinking about, how am I writing a check for $5,000 to reinvest into marketing to potential new clients. And last but not least, 20% would be on fixed expenses such as rent, insurance, payroll processing fees, things that you are never going to get away from. That would be my fixed expense. Obviously, these are knobs on a dial. If your fixed expenses, if you're in a garage like where we started in Northvale, your fixed expenses were like 8%. Obviously, you're going to be more profitable, or you might be able to pay more on payroll. But if you have a huge fixed expense, 35, 40%, you might not be able to have as high of a payroll. So you got to make sure that, number one, you have a budget. And number two, like, this is real simple. And Joe, I got this from you, and I still have them for the people that watch this on YouTube. Old school checkbooks, right? Like, obviously we do everything online banking. Everything's automated with online banking. But multiple times a week, every single day, I'm cross-referencing our point of sale to our bank account, right? Literally, it takes me less than 3 minutes a day, and I cross-reference the payment processor to what hit the bank account from the previous day. And every single Friday, still to this day, every Friday, spend an hour balancing our books for all the businesses. And each and every month, I always catch something, right? I always catch an inconsistency. So, and most businesses will have it. And as you grow, you have to make sure that there's time in your week, and it doesn't have to be crazy, but there's time in your week that is focused on making sure bills are being paid, You're crossing your T's, you're dotting your I's with your payment processing. There's no delinquent credit cards. There's no, fraudulent activity on credit cards or whatever it might be. You might be billed, you might be charged twice from a vendor. That stuff happens all the time. You have to be your number one advocate. And the only way to advocate for yourself is to earmark just a little bit of time to be reviewing the finances in your business.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I mean, the only antidote I have there, Dan, is that obviously that in and of itself sounds super daunting to a lot of gym owners, right? I think the natural progression of a gym owner is to be you go from being the tactician doing all the technician I should say the technician doing all the work, right? And you're actually training and you're busy training. And then it's an easier transition to start marketing that thing because you are now an expert in it. The financial acuity and the financial thing, let's call it mastery, is another skill on top of that, right? And I think like what's made us or given us at least an opportunity for more success is that there's two of us and we both decided to kind of separate ourselves. Yes, Dan's a good marketer and does well. And yes, I understand the finances and have some decent financial acuity too. But it's like, hey, you're going to run with this. I'm going to run with this. And then, let's do this for a period of time. And then we'll come back together 1, 2, 3 years from now and we'll say, all right, great. Hey, like we're on the cusp of possibly hiring some people to help Dan, possibly hiring some assistant marketing director. That's a different thing. But the reality is I think for a lot of people, it's get together with your accountant, your financial advisor. If you don't have one, get one and sit down and see, where all your numbers are at. If you don't understand those numbers, and setting a budget, understanding how much you should be making a month, what your payroll allocation is, all those things. You got to get a good accountant. You got to build your team around you. We were very lucky for years. We had a really great accountant, right? We had a really good lawyer. We have a personal friend and long time client, our longest adult client, who was our financial advisor. So we always had the ability to sit down and be like, "Yo, are we fucking this up? Like, is this a disaster or what?" You know what I mean? And get clarity on that. And then obviously when we had a couple more dollars and we figured it out, we hired a true CFO who's helped us master the budget, master the money side of things. And that's made a huge difference.
Yeah, I'm going to jump off script here because it piggybacks what you just said. Coach Leach up at URI asked a good question, just like, how should coaches,
Taxes.
taxes, like, what do you do for
Ugh.
taxes? And you just said it's like, you know, first of all, a lot of times people look at it as an expense to go out and hire somebody to help them with either A, bookkeeping or B, accounting. And they try to do their taxes by themselves or do QuickBooks 100% by themselves. And it's like, listen, I get that, but like if you go out and you hire somebody, it does not cost a tremendous amount of money for either
No.
one of those services. And the number one thing that I would do, and we do, is we pay for a very quality accountant that is a consultant with the things that we need to be doing and gives us the right, purview of like, hey, this is something that you guys need to be aware of because hey, look, we're gym owners. We're not understanding tax law, and tax law changes all the freaking time. And
All the time.
specific to Scott's question is the very first thing that I would do besides hiring a accountant and bookkeeper is to have a business credit card. And it doesn't need to have, you don't need to have like a $50,000 limit or anything like that. It could have a $2,500 limit. But when you are going to do continued education, or you are taking another coach out for a meal, or you are putting the planning documents together for the summer speed camp, like all those things, you're getting sandwiches, you're getting coffees, like you're getting, you're paying for insurance for the event. You can't, and we've never done this, Joe, because we've always had a partnership. So we were never cross-pollinating personal funds with business funds. And
Hmm.
I think that's where people get jammed up the most. It's like,
They
hey,
do.
listen, like there should be a separation between church and state with your personal funds and your business funds. And the easiest way to do that, separate your bank accounts, separate your credit cards. And that is the easiest advice outside of hiring somebody that understands taxes better than you do. The easiest word of advice there would be to separate the two so it's clear as day when you're printing out reports at the end of the month, end of the quarter, end of the year. There's no gray. That's you got anything to add on that?
I just think some people, like you said, I mean, I think you summed it up pretty good, but I think some people are pigs with their personal finances. They spend way too much money on the business, not realizing that it's still an expense on the business, that that the number one goal at first should be to take a reasonable amount of money for yourself. And yes, we all started businesses to to make money. And yes, you can hide some taxes with personal items and things like that. Technically, nobody hears that, and so forth. But the reality is that what we see is we see a lot of gym owners with, you know, husband and wife Yukons, $1,500, $2,000 in car payments on the business when the business is not doing that great. Tons of business expenses, personal items, travel, things like that. And it's like we didn't really do a lot of those things, not only because they're a partnership, and obviously it was kind of tit for tat. Like if I spend 2 grand, technically, you have the right to spend 2 grand. So it's like, all right, well, we can't spend four, so we just won't spend anything. So I think that kind of kept us in check a little bit in the beginning of our journey together, because it was like, all right, well, I can't just be a pig here, because then that's not fair to Dan, right? So you can't just like take money. So, but I see a lot of these solo gym owners, and they're crushing their personal expenses on the gym, but the gym's not making any money, and then they're complaining, I can't keep good employees because I don't have any money to pay them, or I don't have a marketing budget because I don't have any money to pay. So, well, all right, well, you got $2,000 in cars on your budget, so maybe you should have bought a Honda Accord to start off with, or something like
Totally.
that.
Yeah, they're stressing the business. But like something that's silly and people don't realize, it's like, hey, listen, like you're buying a strength and conditioning book. That's a business expense. You're going to you want to go to a perform better event. That's a business expense. The gas is, the hotel is, the meals are, like that is a business expense. So, make sure that you understand that. And obviously, we've been educated over the years by people that understand tax law way better than we do. So hire somebody.
And being butt ass broke, dude.
Yeah,
That's the best education there is. At some point you get tired of that shit, and you're like, all right, well, we ain't doing that no more. Whatever that is, we don't want that.
no. All right, next question. Jose, our guy Jose from Engage asks, what are some of the best ways to grow a community within a gym?
What are some of the best ways to grow a community in the gym? Well, I mean, first, I mean, I always look at like your overall culture. I talked about this at one of our last events. Like the vibe of most gyms is the vibe of the owners. And Dan and I were talking about this a lot when we were up in Rhode Island. It's like, are you a cool business owner? Are you a cool manager? Are you the type of person where your employees and your people want to hang out with you? Right. And I think that, like, so building a community in your gym business starts with your vibe, your time and generosity with it, right? And just giving back and being available. Obviously, like Dan and I like to have a good time. Team VH, as we jokingly say, likes to go. Like we get together and we all like to party and have a good time. So I think the culture of our business is that, we like hanging out together. We like traveling together. We always have a great time. We bring our crew everywhere, and that's created, I think, a culture of fun. The other thing is just doing fun events and community stuff. Like, how can you get people together in a way that is exceeding the expectation of what a gym should be doing? Is it just your normal, like, workout get together, or is it something cool that you're doing, like a happy hour or a fun event or whatever? And making people like partnering people up, like using other people to like bringing people together and like making friends amongst the friends, right? Like I look at like what Mike's done with heavy metal, and creating these micro communities within that group of people. Some of the like what Colin and Kat are doing over in Ridgewood, with some of their events and their happy hours and their, barbells and beers, and all the yoga and the stuff that they're doing, right? That's really helped to solidify an awesome community feel where people view it as more than just a place where they work out. It's a fun extension of their fitness lifestyle. And that's a little bit of a different thing, right? Because you can check in and check out of places to work out. just like you can check in and check out of like a place to eat or whatever. But there's some restaurants and some places you go where it's a real experience, right? Like anybody could go grab a sandwich from a deli, but going to Katz's Deli in the city is an experience, right? And it's like, where can you create that experience where doing business with you is more than just working out? It's meeting friends, it's immersing yourself in a community, it's, those types of things. So that's where my head goes to.
Yeah. Um, the two things that I have, I think that's all great stuff. You touched upon this is really just what you're talking about, Joe, is building anticipation. Like
Yeah.
if it's just straight workouts all the time, it's like we always use restaurant examples, but why do restaurants have specials or
Hmm.
specialty nights or fun parties? It's like it's something that goes against what the norm is to exceed the expectation. So I would say you have to have some anticipation for internal clients of things to look forward to, definitely. And then I want to give a shout out to Anthony and Adam. They were on the most recent show, and I listened to it this morning. It was really good. And Adam and Anthony were talking about what they believe the failure rate is attributed to in this industry as it relates to coaches and the burnout rate. We've all heard it's 1 to 2 years most people are out, and they were talking about why they thought that was. And it, really it boils down to, and Anthony brought it up actually on the podcast, and I want to quote, I don't want to misquote him, but it was something along the lines of um you have to you have to not get into this because you think working out is cool as a hobby and that you get to like show up to work in shorts and a t-shirt and hang out in the gym and you just come in, rip a couple workouts, work out yourself and go home. It has to be because you as a coach are genuinely excited to help other people. And he said that, right? And other
Hmm.
people on our team, I know that that is a driving force for them, that they are genuinely excited when other people realize a goal or somebody comes in and they were nervous as shit to do their first session. And here we are celebrating their 100th training session completed. And the
Yeah.
thing is if it's not a big deal to you as a coach, like, and you don't recognize the accomplishment, who's gonna recognize it? And it's like if you take that shit for granted, members are gonna be like, like I don't know, I could go train anywhere. And I think when you talk about building community and people that are bought into you, they said it excellent. It was an excellent description of what makes a great training atmosphere. And it truly is coaches being excited about helping other people and seeing people realize the goal that they set for themselves.
Yeah, I think like with Anthony too, like I'll give Anthony some props too, and Adam falls into this category too. And I think like obviously me and you, taking years to kind of realize it, but I always thought like I look at their personal code of conduct, you know, and like obviously like I joke with Anthony, but he's like super buttoned up, like personally, meaning he always trains, he always makes time to train, he brings his food every day. He always looks and dresses professional. He's always very clean shaven, clean haircut. He gets his haircut almost every week, right? He's very militant with those types of things, all those little details. And he carries himself as a professional. He sees himself as a professional coach mentor. His personal vision of himself and his persona that he holds from himself as a professional coach translates to, hey, my number one job is to help people. I was put on planet Earth to mentor other humans to help spread this amazing word of health and fitness. And I look at like Adam, Adam came here. Adam was a kid when he started here. I mean, it was 10 years ago already. Adam was 21 years old, right? But he's always conducted himself with a very high level of professionalism. He always treated the job as a pro, right? He always treated it like a career. It wasn't just a job. He wasn't just checking in to get a paycheck. Even when we were paying him dirt shit in the
Mhm.
beginning of his career, he came to work every day, stayed late, came early, stayed late. I mean, he used to, I mean, Adam worked it still works. He's still here almost every Saturday. Adam has worked almost every Saturday for a decade. If there's kids that want to train and athletes that wanted to train, Adam was here training them, you know. And I think that again, I just wanted to make that clear. Like Dan told you, Anthony said, you have to really want to help people. You have to you have to envision yourself as a professional, right? As a professional. You look at guys that are lifelong pro football coaches, like you see, like, the Coach Sabins of the world and stuff like that. Those guys are professionals.
Hmm.
Like, it's a professional football coach. From day one, they burn the boats, and I'm going to be the best professional football coach that I could be, and in every facet. And that's what they did. So I think that's something that we see. We see a lot of moonlighters was kind of what I was getting to. You see a lot of people who are like a little debated, like, I really like coaching, I like to work out, I like fitness, but I don't know if I want to do this as a career. I'm also bartending. I'm starting this nutrition thing. I'm thinking about opening up a restaurant, right? And it's like, all right, well, hard to go pro in 14 things.
Totally. You talk about professional coaches, and obviously, we've worked with Coach Billy Armstrong for a long time, but
Oh
on a
man.
high school scale, you talk about a guy like at the underground about his quit list and what he does. Like he's a husband, right? He's a father, and he's a basketball coach. Like that's all he is, that's all he does. And the success that they've had in his business and with their team, once again, they won another state championship. It's incredible how simplified and how professional they take a few different things. And his mission is to help those kids buy in at just a, I don't know if you saw, the other night, Hoop Dreams had had a, like a parents' night. They had like
Hmm.
150 parents show up to learn about coaching basketball. And
Yeah.
like it's crazy. So all right, we'll go next question. Coach Liam asked two, he actually asked more than two, but these were two questions that really stood out to me. Um, and you'll take this first one, Joe. How do you
Okay.
balance professional development on science, like the science of coaching and coaching development, and business knowledge? And how do you temper the two?
Um, I mean, it's a funny because obviously we've run the gamut. Like most, I would say the vast majority of gyms that we speak to at the beginning stages of their business, level one, level two, are heavily focused on the X's and O's and the quality of the training product, and that's great, right? You definitely need to get good at training. Um, but I urge people to split it up, and there is no like perfect formula. But I would say like, hey, if you're going to take your team or you're going to engage in professional development on the training side, you're going to go to two great workshops or something like that a year. You're going to get another certification. That you should do two business workshops, right? Or you should do two things, and we can try to keep it as even as possible. If I could change one thing, and I have no regrets, I love the career path that I took. I love the business that Dan and I built as a partnership, right? And I would never go back, and I've never skunked that one time ever. I've never sat there and said to myself, I should have just done this by myself, or I never had the thought. Now, I got lucky in some regards that Dan's always been a gamer in terms of a partner, and I've never once sat there and been, like, measured his time or his effort, right? So when you look at those things, but I think, like, if I could go back and change one thing, I would have spent a lot more time on the business at the beginning, and I would have really, really, really doubled down on my business acumen because I spent far too many years trying to be the best coach on planet Earth, and like in my head, I was like, I want to be the next like Charles Palquin, Louis Simmons, Eric Cressy, things like that, at completely at spite of any business acumen, right? And then you get to a point where it's like, oh shit, now it's a problem, right? And so if you want to avoid the oh shit, now it's a problem moment, make sure you double down on some business. And I say, here's the easiest place to start. My favorite book ever on small business is just Business Made Simple. Donald Miller. He for the amount of times that I recommend that book, I should get a royalty. Um, but that'll give you a Cliff Notes master's degree in small business and really open your eyes to what a lot of people don't know about business.
Great. I'll leave that one there. I think that's great advice. Coach Liam asks his second question that we'll use. Uh, Best way to communicate a price increase. I wrote a note down here. It's I'm gonna just speak from personal experience. We have raised prices externally and internally multiple times. We are about to do it again. And I've literally like lost sleep over price increases in the past, like bad. And yeah, obviously you become a more grizzled veteran over the years and you realize like what's at stake. Here's the deal. You can't afford not to increase your prices.
Yes.
Every business in the world increases their prices. And really, I had this like aha moment when I was speaking to, he's a close personal friend and he's an accountant. And I was talking to him about, this is years ago, and I was talking to him about some of the increased expenses that we were facing as a business. And again, he looks at things black and white, cut and dry. And he just flat out looks at me. He goes, "So what's the problem? Just pass the bill to the client." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Just pass the bill to the client." I'm like, "Well, what does that actually mean?" He goes, "Well, raise it. If your costs are going up 10%, then the client's costs should go up 10%." And it never dawned on me. I was just always
Yeah.
like, all right, let's just eat it and grow through it. And, when food costs go up, sandwiches get more expensive. Eggs, right now, they're more expensive. Gas, more expensive. Like our accounting costs have gotten more expensive. Everything's gotten more expensive. So if you don't raise the rate, eventually the margin that you have, that 20, 25, 30% margin, if the standard rate of inflation is 3% a year, well, shit, over 10 years, if you never change the prices and nobody leaves, you will be running a freaking net loss business. So you have to raise rates. So keep it super cut and dry, Liam. And here's the thing, when you make that announcement, don't make any excuses. Don't talk about inflation. Don't talk about that you need to make more money
It's
personally.
their value. What do they get out of it? Exactly.
That's
That's
it.
it.
That's it. It's just like, hey, as of this date, it's going to this price. We appreciate your service and we look forward to serving you in the future. The end, done. Like, don't leave room for interpretation. Uh, it doesn't need to be a long, drawn out, extravagant explanation. And if you have people on your team, they need to be educated because what we have found is whenever, I'm not saying all the time, but most of the time when a price increase occurs, they clients are going to complain to the most junior team members that don't have the
The
most
decision-making power. Yeah.
they don't have the decision making power and all they want to do is be heard. Nobody's going to be like, "Yes, you guys are taking more of my money." But you have to give your team a clear explanation. Hey, here's how we redirect conversations. Here's some of the things and some of the complaints you might hear. And remember this, if we have 600 clients and only 10 of them complain, the success rate is extremely high. Let's
Yeah.
not let's not forget about the 590 that didn't say anything and gladly will pay more to see the business that they love coming to continue to thrive. So that's
Yeah.
it on price increase, cut and dry, keep it moving.
Yeah. Maybe an idea, we talked about this yesterday in our advisory meeting, was that I spoke to a gym this week who bakes it into their contract. And when he signs up a new client, literally in their contract, it says that they agree to a 5% rate increase every year. And he's like, dude, I got sick of stressing out about price increases. So when I opened up my new gym, he's like, he's like, everything is month to month, but it's in the contract that they sign. We just have them sign it's like obviously for like pause cancellations and price increases, it says on it. And it was a 5% increase every year.
Right.
In the first of the year in January, the price our we raise our rates 5% every year to keep up with being the best, hiring the best, and so he didn't, obviously, like Dan said, didn't talk about we to keep up with inflation, cost of rent.
Right.
Like nobody cares about that shit, but it's how does it translate back to a better gym for the clients, and that's it. And he said nobody says a damn word. He's like, yeah, nobody even thinks about it at that time. So
Yeah, that's great.
pretty smart.
Uh,
Maybe we need to do that.
Very, yeah. Next question is from Coach Woodall. Coach, thank you for responding to a lot of our emails. He did give us a plug here, Joe, saying I love the emails that you guys are putting out. Read them
That's
all the
awesome.
time, and appreciate that, Coach. And he asks, what determines fair market value for your services?
Oh man, you know what you need to get paid is really what I look at, right? So like again, perfect example. I had a lot of calls yesterday. Like, and when I say like I was talking to a gym yesterday, it's like I talked to like 15 gyms yesterday, but I had like 6 calls yesterday with new gyms, right? And and I had a very similar conversation with the one person that I was speaking with, and they were like, "Well, in my area, other gyms charge this, or in this area, the gyms." I was like, "Well, is anybody delivering the service?" You have no, those are class gyms, or that's like a regular gym. And I said, "Well, look, how much money do you want to make personally?" And he said, "All right, I want to make, $150,000." I said, okay, well, let's work backwards then. Because once we know what you want to make, and we'll just assume that that's like, let's call it 25% of the net profit that we're running a business that's at 25 to 30% net profit, we can extrapolate the top end from there. And then the top end is basically how we can extrapolate the price of the product, right? Because we need to know how many people paying this equals this, right? So if you're going to make 500 grand, again, you just look at some of our business, we get 125 people paying $400 a month, gives you X as a top end. And then we extrapolate profit down from there, right? And Dan and I know, hey, I'd like to make this from each shop. If we're going to keep opening up these small shops, in order to make it worth it for the two of us, we kind of need to make this much money. Okay, how do we make that much money? Top end's got to be this. Okay, if top end's got to be that, we either need X amount of people or we need X amount on price, right? You either have to raise the price or raise the number of people, right? So I know that's a little bit of a long-winded answer with not a real concrete, but what I ask is, coach, is what do you want to make from your business? Because if you tell me you're just like doing a little side hustle and you want to make like 50K on the side, you could probably charge lower prices, have less people, and kind of make it low. But if you're telling me, hey, this is my one thing, I need to make 150 grand to like quit my other job and make this the full-time gig, well, then you got to charge what you're worth. And I always say, like, it's better to be more expensive, right? And have to grow into prices a little bit than to be underpriced and have to constantly raise prices and then realize that you're not charging enough. The majority of gyms that we work with are not charging nearly enough, and almost every gym we work with across the board, I think every gym we've worked with, Dan, in the last 5 years, we've raised their prices and helped them with their price sheets, and it's made an enormous difference. And most of the time, none of their clients really say a word because the overvalue on price was crazy. Like some people have raised their prices, a lot, like 50, $100 a month, right? And it's like they didn't get a lot of pushback because they were so undervalued. So the long answer is what you want to make out of your company really dictates the service offering and the prices you charge. And then from there, we kind of work backwards to kind of see what some comps are around us. Again, if there's a personal training gym across the street and they're charging $50 a session and you're charging 150, yes, you're going to have to justify that because clients don't know the difference and they're going to make a price comparison. So, if you want to charge 150, you just have to make sure that your service is so immeasurably better than theirs that people feel stupid not going with your service.
Yeah. And I know Coach he's been in the game for a while here. I the advice of knowing what's around you is obviously super important, but also with this, Joe, I think on an individual basis, if you haven't raised your rates in 3 years on anything, it's fair to say you're not charging fair market value, right? Because if you were selling and hitting a capacity 3 years ago and a lot of your sessions were filled, and you have a lot of these people still with you and you haven't changed the rate externally or internally, like everything's gotten more expensive in the last 3 years. So why hasn't your
Yeah.
training? So you have to make sure that there is scheduled price increases happening. I would say at least every other year. So
Yeah.
that's determining fair market value. All right, last question. We have Coach JJ he asks another great marketing question. He asks, I have a marketing question, particularly for the gym owner doing all the evening coaching with a niche in high school athletes and doesn't currently have a budget for digital ads. His goal is to grow from $6,500 a month to $1,300 per month. You want to take that one away, Joe?
What is the actual question? So, all right.
So he
Yeah.
has no budget
Yeah.
and
Has no budget.
he wants to double his business.
All right. Okay. All right. All right. No budget. Want to double my business. Um, well, the first place I start everybody who joins the Business of Strength, our strongest year mastermind, starts off with the very similar, like they don't really have too much of a budget. So we start off with referral marketing and community marketing. So, if like many gyms, you have referrals are a big part of the business, but you don't have them lined up in a way that's repeatable, actionable, and measurable. That would be your first step. So referrals at the point of sale for new members, buddy weeks baked into like a cadence where maybe it's like what Dan and I used to do, where the first Saturday of every month you're running like a bring a friend workout, right, at a specific time, or a beginner workout. You have some well-placed buddy weeks throughout the year. Maybe if you run 6 week or 4 week transformations or something like that, you do that as a referral thing. So current members, if they join the transformation or if they bring a friend to the transformation, their transformation is free. So you want to bake these referral opportunities in a consistent fashion so they're constantly popping up in front of people. And you're not just relying on people to refer when they can remember or feel like it or have that opportunity, right? I gave this analogy literally about 3 times yesterday on calls, and it was like, hey, no, nobody leaves your gym and goes home and says, man, that was the best work I've ever had. Dan's a really nice guy. I really like Dan. He's a good dude. That was a really good work. You know what? I'm going to take today off of work from my job and my family, and I'm going to sit here all day and try to figure out ways to make Dan money. Right? That doesn't happen. Right. So you want to put the opportunity, you want to reduce the friction on referrals. You want to make it super simple. You want to give them multiple opportunities throughout the year to refer. So that would be number one. Number two, I would create an angel list, right? Who do you need to know? What clients do you have that haven't upgraded or referred? What clients left that you haven't communicated with that you'd like to get back in the gym? Who are players in your community that you want to do business with? Who's the chief of police, the chief of the fire department, the mayor, the head of the business chamber in town? Do you know the key players in town? Are there key players in your community advocating for your business? Or have you just like stayed in the business the whole time, never really got out and met anybody? Like I could say with confidence that we've met the majority of the key players in all the communities that our businesses are in because and whether or not they directly set up a pipeline of people, they're a player in the community. And when somebody brings up fitness or somebody's talking about a gym or whatever, they have your back, right? Because they know you. So those two things I think would be mission critical. And then last but not least, like double down on content creation, right? Content creation is free. It just takes time. Okay. And creating content, doing training videos, nutrition tips, writing emails, all that stuff is free. It just takes time. And so when gym owners say to me, like, I don't have I suck at marketing. No, you just suck at time management and you're not doing it. Right? Because like Dan and I worked the typical, open to close schedules. We worked 6, 7 days a week. We figured out how to write those emails and do the social media. Like we just figured it out. We did it. And it wasn't great, but it got done. Right. And we did it. And so you got to figure out how to get it done. So those would be where I start. If you're in the gym all day anyway, you should be able to create some decent gym centric, like fitness tips, tools, and tricks content and then maybe write a couple emails, so like, film something about training, how to take care of your shoulders, neck, or back, or whatever, and then write an email about it. And now you have 3 or 4 pieces of content.
Absolutely. I agree with all those things. I will add some that weren't mentioned at all. The first thing, and this is a really important point because Joe, I believe that there's a lot of people that might look at Varsity House as it stands now. It's like, oh, well, you have people helping with social media, you have agencies, you pay for ads, and you have all this and that. For the first 10 years, we didn't have shit, nothing, $0 to spend on marketing. We spent not a single dollar on marketing the first 10 years outside of sponsorships for local town days and things like that. It was all through time. So the very first thing, if I was training just athletes, I would go to the games of the athletes that I was training. Friday nights, kids aren't training. Saturday afternoons, kids aren't training. I would go to a game on a weekly basis. On a weekly basis. That's number one. I would have a QR code on how to do business with you on the back of your cell phone or business. I know, Joe, you have that. Business cards on you, pamphlets, whatever you need. Wear your shirt, go and support the athletes that you have. Go sit with the parents that are going to introduce you to other parents. We did this. I am a sports fan, so I enjoyed being there. B, I had no expectation of doing business there, but I was open to the connections that came from going to those games. And let me tell you, we made a lot of money by going to games. That's number one. Number two, every single person that does business with you, athlete, adult, whatever, you can give them a gift upon signing up for your gym. And the gift could be less than $10. And it could be an icon like this icon that the NSCA just gave me. This 36-ounce water bottle costs probably $7. You could put your logo on it, and inside of it, we still do this with mugs and blender bottles and all this kind of stuff. You could have a referral card inside of it that gives the new member at your gym a gift card to give to somebody else in their school, whoever, $100 off training at your gym.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. It becomes an icon. How many kids that you train have siblings in the household or parents that don't train with you and they go home and wow, you see this awesome icon gift on the kitchen table with a gift card stuffed inside of it. Every gym in America should be doing something like this right now. It is so easy. And if like every gym, I mean, how many gyms yesterday told you, Joe, that the way they market is through word of mouth?
Almost every one of them.
Everyone. So like give them a reason to talk about you positively at the dinner table, okay? That's the second thing. And then specifically for you, JJ, it's finding the room for some marketing budget. It's the consideration of is there any price elasticity on what you're selling? Like, can you charge another $5 more per session, which would give you a little bit more breathing room to actually go into your community and write a couple checks for, the local T-ball teams, the local football team, to put a full page ad journal in their book and ask them to send an email on your behalf. Like, can you do that to create a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of breathing room to help grow your business? When you think about marketing, and this is obviously something that Joe's talked a lot about. I've talked about it on the show before. If you had to give a loan for 30 days, if you had to loan somebody money for 30 days and you gave them $1,000, but you knew 60 days later you're going to get $2,000 back, wouldn't you do it? And that's the way marketing should work, right? It
Yeah.
should pay you back. Yes, you might have to loan it out for a period of time, but it should pay you back at least a time and a half on the dollar spent, right? So that's what I would include in terms of marketing your business from 6,500 to 13,000. And I also would think a little bigger, right? Like 13 grand a month, the differentiation, depending on what you're charging, it's not that many people, right? Like if
No.
you're charging 250 a month, I mean, you're talking about 20 people, 25 people. I think that you can do more than that.
Yeah, and I think there's so many free, like, don't negate what Dan and I like to refer to as the campaign trail. And just like when was the last time, and we've posed this to our consulting group, it's like, when was the last time you went out into your local town and community and literally just walked up and down the road and introduced yourself to every other gym owner? Just reminded them. You might have done it when you opened up. Maybe you did it a couple of years ago, but like, have you kept up any of those relationships? And have you been do you also do business in town
Yeah,
where you are?
agreed.
Like, do you go in and like do you buy food from the local? Do you go to the local coffee shop, or are you still rolling through Starbucks? Like,
Hmm.
I've made a point, and you saw today, and I got your coffee. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to Starbucks. I was right there. I was right across the street. I had the app out. I was gonna order me and you two nitros, and I was like, you know what? F that. I was like, they got billions. The local place down the street needs my money way more. So I went down to the local place down the road and got a great coffee in a nice little place. The place was buzzing. It was like, you know what? I'm happy to give those people. They're a small family business trying to survive, right? As opposed to a
What
giant
was it?
multi.
What was the
Oh,
place?
that was that Cafe Trois, the little French Korean restaurant there. That's a good spot, really cool, good little
Cool.
spot. So, again, like I think that those are some things that a lot of people overlook. You know, all I know is after being in business for 30 years is that and the only thing I can say with a certainty is you have no idea how the next person you speak to can change your life. And it's literally like just like sometimes when you're on sales calls and like you've been dead in the water on three or four calls, and the next call could be a big hit for the business, right? The next business you walk into and introduce yourself could be the best joint venture, best client, best pipeline you've ever had. And a lot of people just don't do it, or as is become cliche and a lot today, they quit or they get discouraged right before, like literally, like if they had like a crystal ball, the next door that they were about to open was like, I don't know, I'm just using an example, like, a head coach of the local football team who would have signed up his entire team with you if you just opened that door and said hello. But you said, you know what? Nobody even pays attention to me, so I'm just going to go back to doing what I was doing, and that's it. So keep kicking open doors, keep saying hello to people, keep donating your time and energy. If you're a brick and mortar gym business, which is our main focus as a consulting company and as an actual gym business, you have to become part of the community. You have to, right? There's too many gyms that are just selling fitness. Be better than that and go out and meet people and help the community get fitter and healthier.
Agreed. Well, that's those are the questions that we distilled it down
Awesome.
from. We really appreciate everybody that reached out and asked questions. And look, if this is something that you want to see regularly, just keep sending questions in and we'll keep popping up these question and answer podcasts. And this was fun, Joe.
Awesome. Hey, little tidbit for those of you who are listening. Don't forget our Weight Room Wealth. We got some great events. Go to businessofstrength.com. Check out the events page. We have some awesome events this year. Weight Room Wealth in May. We have our annual retreat in Scottsdale, Arizona in September. We're bringing it back, baby. Underground Strength Con 3.0 with our good buddy Zach Evanesh in November. And then our executive day, which is a very high touch kind of small gym. We keep that to a very closed door of only a few gyms, but that's a deep, deep, deep dive into your business and your finances. And that's in the first weekend of December. So we got some great stuff happening. And if you need help turning your passion into a real business you could be proud of, you know what to do. Just reach out, shoot us a DM, send us an email, Dan or Joe at Varsity House Gym, and let's see how we can help grow your business. This is the Business of Strength. We'll see you next time.
Peace.